What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to talk about the shadow equipment of a Taekwon. Since we have already covered the skills, it's now time to check out the shadow equipment, as this gives the Taekwon skills a huge boost in its stats as well as good effects. But before we start the video, do you have problems AFK grinding in ROX? Do you always worry that you may overcharge or the battery of your phone, tablet, or laptop may overheat? Do you worry about your electricity bill when grinding using your personal computer that is running for days non-stop? Or do you encounter intermittent connection from your internet service provider, which disconnects your character when AFK grinding? Well, if that is the case, then UgPhone can solve all of your problems. UgPhone is a cloud phone that runs independently in the cloud, and it does not consume the memory or battery of your physical device. Even if you close the UgPhone app, your game will still continue to run in the cloud, which makes this the perfect phone for AFK grinding for 24 hours, 7 days a week non-stop.
Nice.
You can also run multiple instances of UgPhone in one account, which allows you to play and grind multiple games simultaneously. As you can see, my Shura and Royal Guard are AFK grinding at the same time. UgPhone is available in Google Play for Android, App Store for iOS, Windows Store for PC, and you can also use a web browser to run UgPhone. So if you want to try out UgPhone, you can use my link shown in the description below. And you can also use my invitation code, which really helps me out. So thank you guys, and thank you UgPhone for the sponsor. Now let's get back to the video. For the first one, which is the Inscription, these are just stats that are added to your character. The important stats in this section are the physical penetration, physical damage bonus, haste, and physical attack percentage. With regards to the strength and dexterity, these are basic stats that are added to your character. However, these stats are very minimal, so if you have limited SE resources, I would rather prioritize the haste, physical penetration, and physical attack percentage. Moving on to the Pioneer, I would prioritize the physical penetration, damage bonus, haste, and physical lifesteal in this section. If you prefer to build your character in a more PvP-centric build, then I would recommend you prioritize the PvP stats for both the Inscription and Pioneer sections. On to the next section, which is the Bound. This is where we get the additional boost in the Taekwon skills. The first one is for the Rising Kick, which increases the damage coefficient as well as getting an increase in your physical damage bonus. The best part about this skill is that it increases your physical damage bonus and it can stack up to 3 times. The next skill is the Round Kick, which gets a 30% increase in damage coefficient, and it also improves your energy regen. In my opinion, this skill is the best skill to use in PvE, especially in AFK grinding, because this is an AoE skill and at the same time, it has an HP regen effect. Now, it becomes even better when you use the Round Kick skill in the Bound section because it increases your energy gain, meaning you can gain more stars and you can use your ultimate skills more frequently. This is pretty good in the early stages of the game when most characters doesn't have a good progression yet, as you can spam your ultimate skill more often. Next is the Shattering Kick skill. Same with the other 2 skills, it increases your damage coefficient, and whenever you inflict 1 stack of weakness to your enemy, it decreases their physical defense. For me personally, this is the best skill for MVP and mini hunts because of the debuff that decreases their physical defense. Remember, the Taekwon is a physical penetration build, which means that the lower the enemy's defense, the higher your damage will be. So this is a good skill to use in MVP and mini hunts, and at the same time, you can easily accumulate the maximum stacks of weakness when fighting boss monsters. This is because of their huge HP. Moving on to the final skill in the Bound section, which is the Demon of the Sun, Moon, and Stars. The Taekwon will get a blindness debuff, which basically turns your screen into black, and the only thing that you can see is your character. In return, you will get an increase in your final damage bonus. Now this skill is quite interesting because you can only use this in certain situations. I'm pretty sure that this is bad in PvP because you can only see your character. The Taekwon is a melee class, so you need to chase your opponents in a fight, which make this skill a disadvantage. I think this will only be useful in AFK grinding, since most of the time, you are only sitting in one spot, so having the blindness debuff won't really affect you in eliminating the monsters. On to the next section, which is the Engrave. We will be getting the continuation of the 3 basic kicks of a Taekwon. The first one is the Axe Kick, which is similar to the buff of the Rising Kick. It has an increase in the damage coefficient, as well as PvP final physical damage bonus. So by now, I think we can already see the trend of the Taekwon's kicks. I think the Rising Kick is more for PvP, while the Round Kick is for AFK grinding, and finally, the Shattering Kick is more on MVP and mini hunts. For the Whirlwind Kick, you will only get an increase in damage coefficient for this skill, while the Ignition Kick also gets an increase in damage coefficient and an energy gain effect. So the energy gain for the Ignition Kick is quite good, as this is based on the weakness stacks that you inflict to your enemies. I guess if you are having trouble gaining energy for your Taekwon, maybe you can pair this up with the Round Kick in the bound section for more energy gain. Moving on to the last skill, which is the Union of the Sun. Now this is a pretty good skill to use in PvE, especially in boss hunts because you will have a regen effect while inside the Sun Realm. And you basically get a reflect fire damage when you take physical damage from your opponent. I'm not sure if this is good in PvP, especially if your opponents know how your skills work. Of course, when you cast the Sun Realm, the first thing that your opponents will do is to stay away from it. Moving on to the validation section, we have the final iteration of the Taekwon's kicks. First is the Blast Kick, which adds more damage coefficient to the skill, and at the same time, the enemy's stun resistance will be reduced when hit by this skill. Again, this is really good in PvP since most players usually use stun resist cards to avoid getting crowd controlled during the fight. Next is the Cyclone Kick, which has the same energy gain effect just like the Round Kick. Again, for this skill, I think this is more of an AFK grinding skill. For the third one, which is the Atomic Kick, this has multiple effects in battle. First is the true damage coefficient, which is increased when using the skill in the shadow equipment. The next one is that when the target reaches a certain amount of HP, they will be insta-killed by the Atomic Kick. However, the insta-kill effect will not work on MVP, mini, and boss monsters. It also allows the Taekwon to restore a huge amount of energy after using this skill. I'm still leaning towards using this on boss hunts because of the additional true damage that it deals. I'm not so sure if the insta-kill will work on PvP because that will be quite OP as well. For the last skill, which is the Records of the Sun, Moon, and Stars, this is basically an energy regen effect which works on both the Sun and Moon realms. You will basically gain a lot of energy when defeating enemies within 4 meters inside the Sun and Moon realms. Again, this is good in PvE because most monsters usually stay in one spot. However, PvP is a different story, as smart players will surely stay away from the realms when fighting a Taekwon. Moving on to the contract section, the first one is the Blessing of the Sun, which increases your fire attribute enhancement and resistance when inside the Sun realm. However, the best effect of this skill is that it will also enhance not only yourself, but all the party members that are inside the Sun realm. Now that is a really good party buff from a Taekwon. I've been saying this in my previous videos, that the Taekwon has one of the best support skills in the whole game. Next is the Sun Explosion skill, which adds an ignite effect on this skill. This is an AoE skill as the ignite damage will hit multiple opponents at the same time. In addition to the ignite damage, it also has the capability to restore your energy. Next is the Blessing of the Moon, which increases your weapon attribute enhancement by 6%. Similar to the Blessing of the Sun, the effect of this covers all your party members. If you're wondering, what is this attribute enhancement stat? This is basically the elemental attribute that you are using for your character. For example, if you are using fire, then you will have a fire attribute enhancement in your weapon. Basically, the Moon Realm is more flexible than the Sun Realm because you won't be limited to only the Fire attribute. The Moon Realm will increase whatever attribute enhancement you and your party members are currently using. On the final skill, which is the Union of the Moon, you will be able to enter the hiding state after casting this skill. Now that is pretty awesome, especially in PvP. The hiding state cannot also be dispelled even if you take damage, which is quite OP. On top of that, your next ultimate skill will get a huge damage boost for 15 seconds. Again, this will be useful in PvP as you rarely use the hiding state in PvE. On to the final section, which is the Soul. The first one is the Friends of Stellar Fist. This is one of the Taekwon's party buff skills. So when you use this skill in your shadow equipment, all your party members will receive an increase in their final physical damage bonus, which can stack up to 3 times. Again, another useful support skill from the Taekwon. The sad thing about this is that you can only unlock this skill on shadow equipment level 7. Next is the Full Moon Kick, which allows the Taekwon to gain a shield effect based on their physical attack. That is a good buff for the Taekwon, however, the Full Moon Kick will only be available when you are inside the Union of the Moon Realm. Next is the Engrave of the Stars, which gives you an increase in final damage bonus in PvP. Pretty good buff, especially in PvP, however, the problem is that you can only use this skill when you unlock Shadow Equipment level 8. And last but not the least is the Friends of Stellar Fist 2. This is the polar opposite of the first skill as the effect will only be granted to the Taekwon itself. If you ask me, I would rather use the first one so that all my party members will get a damage increase. That is useful in PvE, especially in hunting boss monsters. And that's it for the Taekwon's Shadow Equipment skills. What are your thoughts on the buffs and effects that you gain from the Shadow Equipment? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you want to see more ROX content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. GG!
You're a superhero.